Hello, welcome to Political Bedlam. We are coming down from the Frank Keating interview, which was fantastic. It all just kind of seems not as good now, right?
No, everything else we've done is garbage.
Yeah.
And there's no point in talking about it.
Sitting in my spare bedroom is far removed from the plush decor of his office. But I mean, we're doing okay here. We got some blankets nailed up to the walls.
They are nailed with high-quality nails, I'm assuming from Lowe's, Home Depot?
You can see right here, we tried the duct tape.
Oh, no, you can't duct tape quilts.
Yeah,
can't do that.
I thought I could duct tape the memory foam because it's memory foam and it's pretty light and airy, but nope, you can't duct tape that either. Cass, we are missing Reese tonight, so you're going to have to just cast twice as hard as you normally would.
I don't know. I'm not much of a talker. I don't have a lot to say about stuff. So,
we could be in for some deadening silences tonight, folks. Got a guest coming in later, hosts his own podcast, The Otap Show, OTAP, Adrian Otap. We've only met in person once, and it was very briefly, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I assume it's just Otap. But he'll be coming in a bit. He leans pretty far right, probably even further right than me. So I'm just basically just putting him in the studio to argue with Cass. So
my favorite thing.
Yes. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But before we get there, talk a couple of things. First off, one that's a little bit more, we'll probably agree on it for the most part. We're going to try and start arguing about more things because secretly me and Cass hate each other.
Oh, this guy? Oh, the worst.
Yeah, it's all a front for the mic. We wanted to appear pleasant, but then we found out that people don't like pleasant. So we're going to try and work ourselves up to the point where every episode we have just a brutal fist fight afterward.
No, for sure. This is going to be bloody. We'll record it, and we'll put it on our eventual Patreon.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we've got to get some cameras in here, too, so people can see what we're doing whenever we're in here.
We'll call it Giant Fights.
Giant Fights. Well, let's start with some Oklahoma turned national news tonight.
Amen, brother. Let's go there.
Let's go with Oklahoma's favorite son, Scott Pruitt. Forced a reflex in Cass.
All over the floor.
Scott Pruitt stepped down today.
In disgrace.
Yes, though technically about the last 4 or 5 months have kind of been disgrace. I mean, if we're going back even further, there are scandals from as early as January 2017.
I'm honestly impressed he lasted this long. If anything, we should be talking about his resilience.
I don't know if it's his resilience as much as it was just you're hearing scandals every other day coming out of the Trump administration, and we're all becoming kind of hardened to it. So whether this was if this was the Bush administration or the Obama administration, this would have been the media's focal point for months.
And he would have been fired immediately.
It would have happened a lot sooner. Things with Pruitt range from getting interns or paid staffers even to go out and get his favorite skin moisturizing cream to trying to buy a used mattress from Trump Hotel.
My personal favorite is trying to get his wife a job.
Yeah, owning
her Chick-fil-A franchise.
Owning her own Chick-fil-A franchise. Trump tweeted tonight, or I guess it was actually this afternoon, I've accepted the resignation of Scott Pruitt as the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Within the agency, Scott has done an outstanding job, and I'll always be thankful to him for this. And then he mentions that the Senate will confirm his deputy, Andrew Wheeler, multi-part
What
tweet.
does Donald Trump mean by outstanding job? Does he mean... You go first.
Yeah, no, I actually didn't hate all of what Scott Pruitt did.
Of course you didn't.
I think a lot of what the EPA had done in previous administrations, including the Bush administration, was some cumbersome regulations, and he cut some of the ones that I would agree with. I would have to probably look at a list of the things to really pick out some examples that I like. But then there are other ones that people we had a technical issue, interrupted a very poignant thought from Cass. Knee-jerk reaction kind of articles that on upping our audio production quality. Got a mixer and mics. Going to buy those here soon. We know the production is bad, guys.
Stop telling me. I am sick of hearing about it.
We
and trust us that when we have a serious guest, we will up the quality.
Yes.
So look forward to that.
Yeah, we usually outsource the job to a producer like we did with the Keating episode. But yeah, we're looking to get better in-house production. We have Jeremy right now very closely monitoring the app to make sure we are still recording because it just stopped in the middle of something. And we ask so much of Jeremy. He's monitoring multiple screens at once.
No, and if you don't listen to us, listen for Jeremy. He's doing just a standout job.
Yeah.
So hats off to Jeremy.
Hats off to Jeremy for sure. But let's. We are reading something from Trump about we are going to get there. We're going to get an immigration law. I was just reading about a tweet. Cass was busy talking about how my daughter doesn't want to breathe oxygen or something crazy.
No, what you expect your daughter to do, the reason you like Scott Pruitt's rollback of environmental regulations is because you believe heavily in the theory of evolution, and you believe that your daughter is the first in a vanguard of children who will be able to breathe something other than oxygen.
Right. I'm really hoping Amelia is going to be the first human. I don't know what else would breathe something other than oxygen.
I
know tardigrades can survive in space.
Maybe a tardigrade?
Human tardigrade hybrid. That's what I want Amelia to be. Humigrade.
Invincible.
Or tardiman? Humigrade or tardiman? Which one?
Tardiman sounds like a wonderful condiment they serve at Arby's for their new fish sandwich.
It does.
So let's go with humigrade.
Let's go with humigrade. So Amelia's going to be a humigrade. Shout out to you listening to this in the future. Uncle Cass doesn't like you. He wants you to be part human, part tardigrade. I hope you hear that.
Don't listen to him. You're a precious angel, and I will be fine if you take over the world.
So we were talking about the EPA. We were talking about how I consider Scott Pruitt's record to be kind of mixed. Of course, obviously, all the stuff outside of his record and within his official discipline. I mean, he just botched everything. I mean, there's records of him keeping a secret calendar with meetings from lobbyists that he wanted to keep off the books to where they wouldn't be subject to a FOIA request.
I think that's why he stepped down, is because he was worried those would come out.
Well, the reason he cited that he stepped down was apparent harassment to his family. I don't know. I think those are probably overblown. But there was that incident this last week. It wasn't quite harassment. It was a woman respectfully coming up to him in a restaurant and asking him, did you see that?
Oh, I saw that. Okay. I thought, if anything, she was restrained.
Yeah, I thought she was well-spoken.
I don't know if I could be that restrained.
Yeah, I don't know if I personally would come and say that to a politician that's just at dinner, but I think the way that she did it, I mean, if you were going to talk to someone in public about what they do at work, that's the way that you do it. Let's get on something that we don't agree about. What was once kind of one of the more hardline left points is now becoming a mainstream Democrat point, and that is to abolish ICE. You got that tweet for us, Jeremy? Cass, go ahead and talk about whatever commie nonsense you got going.
Well, as far as commie nonsense goes, the debate about whether or not ICE should exist is one that has been going on in the public sphere for the first time since the group's inception. Well, at least in the public sphere at least. ICE has existed since 2003. It was created by the Bush administration as part of his anti-terror stance, and it was a consolidation of several groups. And its only purpose. People in ICE have one job, and it is to deport citizens. Otherwise, you don't join ICE. Otherwise, ICE doesn't exist.
Citizens.
I'm sorry, I said no. That's correct.
Migrants or
people.
people.
No,
yeah.
You're right. They are not citizens.
Right.
Not that matters, but we'll get there.
Right. Important semantic difference, though.
Well, yeah, no, a very important semantic difference. You're absolutely right. I misspoke. No, for the first time, because of Trump's rhetoric, we are talking about immigration in a way that is far more, for lack of a better word, heated, and the Overton window is changing. Overton window being, of course, a concept in politics where what is acceptable to be brought up in the public sphere changes.
The window of discourse.
The window of discourse changes, absolutely. So now we finally have mainstream politicians or
I would say that this is a point that it's shifting left.
It's shifting left. Absolutely it is. Do you want to go ahead and read his tweet before we continue?
And then I'll point out a poll today. Congress, this is a tweet from Donald Trump, Congress must pass smart, fast, and reasonable immigration laws now. Law enforcement at the border is doing a great job, but the laws they are forced to work with are insane. When people with or without children enter our country, they must be told to leave without our major ellipsis break. Probably another tweet, but you get the gist. Something that came out today and something that the White House is pointing to, among other sources, was there was a Harvard-Harris poll today that a lot of people said, and rightfully so, is sort of bad news for Democrats in terms of the court of public opinion, whereas per poll, 65% of voters, both Republican and Democrat, agree with almost all or all except one of Trump's policies on immigration. I have the poll in front of me right here. 65% support a DACA deal that ends chain migration. 60% want to eliminate a random visa lottery and secure the border with a wall. Only 35% of Americans did not agree. The strongest point on this is nearly 70% oppose the visa lottery in a separate question. And 80% believe that immigration should be merit-based.
I'm actually surprised that 35% is as high as it is. I have always seen the borders as something that don't make sense, and we can get into that more, but to have that many people disagree with that much of the population, I think, is a huge step forward, and that number is only going to grow.
That's surprising to you? Because to me, it was surprising that as many people agreed with the president on that.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I understand that my position is a quote-unquote fringe position.
It was. It's
well,
not anymore.
It's slowly not becoming one. Abolish these imaginary lines and allow people to travel freely between Mexico and the United States. And notice we're talking about Mexico, not Canada, and the implications of that are apparent. So we've got to readdress not only what it means to be a nation, but what it means to have borders. Or rather, flip that, what it means to not only be have borders, but what it means to be a nation.
Well, okay, let's talk about this, because I hear a lot of people talk about abolish ICE and replace it with what, or not replace it at all. Well, this seems to vary depending on who you ask.
Right, no, and my position would be replace it with nothing and open up the borders.
Okay.
And I think at the heart of the problem, and that's why the window is changing, because people grappling with the concept of ICE are realizing that the organization supports a concept that is dated and outmoded. We don't need borders. We need accountability. And it's okay to know who's coming in and who's coming out.
But how would you know that without customs and border protection? Or
you have customs.
Okay, so you're not talking about getting rid of the CPB.
I change the CPB, abolish ICE. That's my position.
Okay, change the CPB. How?
Well, I mean, open the borders.
Well, I get where you're coming from, but if you were to say know who's coming in and coming out, it's kind of hard to do that without custom stations and without CPB having teeth, so to speak.
What kind of teeth do they need if they're just saying name, purpose of visit, and enjoy your stay for as indefinite as it is?
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day that there is, and whether a lot of people are taking advantage of it or not, is probably subject to a more nuanced debate than I am willing to talk about, but there is an advantage for some people to not being citizens, to being able to stay off the grid, to making money, and then I don't know if you knew this, but the biggest complaint that a lot of people like me, who aren't necessarily anti-immigration but are anti-legal immigration, is in remittances. The number that's often floated is that illegal immigrants bring as many as $14 billion in sales tax and Social Security tax, but we lose as much as $150 billion in remittances. And remittances are, of course, money that is sent to other countries. I think that is actually the biggest economic impact that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk, because they like to talk about, like, oh, they waste this money in emergency services, blah, 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 blah. To me, it's remittances, and emergency services are second. What would you say to that?
Well, you're constantly calling me a communist. Are you
going to live up to it?
In love, and I think I'm going to live up to it right now.
Okay. Call me moment from Cass coming up.
And this isn't a Marxist position. This is a far more modern communist take. But the morality of keeping someone out of your country overwhelms the need for financial security. We do the right thing because it's the right thing. Economics, be damned.
I would disagree with that. I would think at the very end of the day, the interest of I mean, if they're drastic enough, if it's very minor, then of course what you're saying. But if the interest of current citizens are put at risk by any form of migration or immigration, I think it necessarily doesn't need to be rejected, but it needs to be looked at.
Well, when you say risk, what are you talking about? Are you talking about not having enough money?
Well, I'm talking about just the fact that we already have pretty bad income inequality as it is, so adding a ton of new workers, and especially workers who are going to work lower in jobs that might, for instance, price me and you out of the wage market, isn't going to do us a lot of good.
All right, but the people coming over are not taking my job or your job. They're taking
They might be able to.
Well, I mean, you know what? And if they can, doesn't that support your theory of what's the survival of the fittest for capitalists? What do you call that?
Social Darwinism?
Social Darwinism. Isn't that just social Darwinism?
Yes, but I'm not a social Darwinist. At the end of the day, like we talked about, I'm more of a center Republican. Real far right Republicans, like libertarians, are a little bit more. I guess they lean on the side of absolute freedom, and I'm a little bit authoritarian in the way that we can protect our national interest and therefore our citizens.
So you want to prop up the economy with immigration? That's communist.
No, I don't want to prop up the economy.
That's straight up Marxism.
I'm saying that
that's Bernie Sanders.
Immigration will hurt the economy. We already have income inequality. We already have workers that aren't being paid enough. Having a big flux of people that are going to be vying for those positions is not going to help anyone who's not making very much money as is.
Okay, but the problem isn't immigration. The problem is your boss isn't giving you enough money.
Okay, but adding a lot more people for them to exploit for less money is not going to fix the problem.
Okay,
it's going to pass it on to the next group of people.
Then you need to go to the root of the problem, not something that may or may not exacerbate it at the cost of moral capital.
It's not will not. It will. Like adding more people that are going to work for the same low wage jobs will create a more competitive wage market for lower income jobs. It's not a maybe. It will. Just like that. That's just an economic reality. And we could debate the implication and like how much of an impact it's going to be all we want. But that's just a fact.
Well, if that is a fact, and I'll concede that it is for the sake of argument, then let's go ahead and solve that problem by strengthening our unions.
I don't know.
Giving the workers more power.
I would say giving the workers more power is letting them take home more of their checks and making them not have to support unions that will endorse candidates that don't agree with their political beliefs. I was a big fan of the latest ruling. What was the ruling called?
I know what you're talking about, and I'm sure you were a big fan of it.
I think being required to pay union dues when you aren't a member of the union is a violation of free speech. I actually, for one of the first times on union rulings, completely understand the counter-argument of it removes a lot of the union's powers when people all of a sudden have the option of not joining the union but still having the union advocate for them. At that point, why would anyone join the union? I understand the counter-argument, but I think that free speech supersedes that.
Well, then let's go to the root of that problem and make it so that unions can endorse candidates.
That might actually be a happy middle ground. I don't know. I'd have to do more research on it, but that might be a happy middle ground.
Because at the end of the day, the union is who's going to protect you. It's not going to be your boss. And you don't have enough power as an individual for fight for your rights as a worker.
No, but on a macro scale, we we control the wage markets, what we are willing to work on. And we have been, to a point, exploited to where we need to live. We need to take whatever job we can get. But we do control what we work for at the end of the day. I was, at one point, I don't know if I still am, but wasn't a big fan of the minimum wage in general. But I don't know. I think that we determine our value as workers, and the market responds to that. And I guess we got pretty far off the track of what we were talking about when it comes to immigration, but I think that problem will not be helped by adding a bunch of new people.
I don't think we strayed that far off topic because the real heart of the immigration issue, what it comes down to is people are afraid they'll lose their job. So I think all in all, that's all a part of it. But there's another part of the argument, and that's they're sending their worst. And I want to talk about Trump's rhetoric toward immigrants for a little bit and how that's changing the discussion, because ICE has existed since 2003. It did terrible things under Bush. It did really terrible things under Obama. And I don't know if you use this, but people on the far left like me call Obama the deporter-in-chief. More people were deported under his presidency than any president since, I think, Eisenhower. So, it's not all rainbows, I mean, in 2015 with Ogerfell, it was rainbows. But other than that, it wasn't, ideal under any circumstance.
Yeah. Sorry, I was getting a message from our guest. I don't know. I actually have heard that. Yes, give me the nod. All right. We are on live video, and we are recording on the podcast right now. Got our guest, Adrian Otap. What's up, buddy?
Not much. So good to be here. I'm happy we're finally able to coordinate and collaborate on something.
We got to collaborate. It's all about teamwork.
Exactly.
Got your own show. You said we can find you on Facebook. Is that right?
That's right. Facebook, there is a specific page, not just my personal one, but The Otap Show, all one word. And we're looking at doing some stuff on Patreon in the coming days. Awesome. As we get more likes and shares and followers.
You know, I was looking up your show today, and unfortunately I didn't have a chance to listen. I do apologize, but you cover a wide range of topics, so there's something for everybody, it seems.
I like to think that.
Yeah, excellent.
You know, kind of like the Shakespearean thing, appeal to the bawds and the intelligentsia.
There you go. There you go.
Well, guys, if you want to see us live on video, now is your chance. Go to the OTAP show, find the collaboration video, and then just click play.
And for those of you that didn't know, Chandler and I are both legally classified as giants. So
yeah. No, you can see that.
We were hired at our job to fill a quota.
right, the giant quota.
Yes,
well,
affirmative action, despite what President Trump is trying to do at the colleges and universities. It applies to giants and the rest of the world.
Hey, Cass, by the way, we're on video, so we can see your eye roll.
You can see my eye roll. That for those of you just saw my first eye roll.
All right.
So,
well, we were talking a little bit. We were trying to introduce Adrian. Of course, his listeners know, but we're introducing to our people. Talk about what you do, because it was fascinating.
All right. As we were talking earlier, normally I work as a civilian contractor working with the military, primarily the Army down at Fort Sill. Off and on, the world of contracting, contracts come to an end sometimes, so there's breaks, but I generally work as an instructor at the Patriot Missile School down there, either as an instructor or as a simulation operator, which is to say someone who runs the simulation labs for both tactical training and for maintenance training.
Oh, that's awesome. How you served, right? I know that from looking at some of your Facebook photos with your Army buddies. When did you serve?
All right. As we were talking before we started streaming, you said, "Hey, let's save that."
Yeah. It was interesting.
But started out as a dirty sailor in the Navy. I was inspired by September 11th, as some people would say, and did submarines for my first 4 years. And then there was as I like to call it, an incident, and then I went to an aircraft carrier for a year. And after that, because of the way the advancement system worked in the Navy, there's some stories behind that, but I made a decision to do a direct transfer over to the Army, and that's how I ended up in the world of Patriot missiles. And did that for about 5 years, and been in the National Guard since then here in Oklahoma doing human resources work.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah,
all right,
quite a track.
So tell us about Patriot missiles. What makes them so patriotic?
What makes them so patriotic? Well, actually, when it comes to Patriot missiles, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the word Patriot in Patriot missiles is an acronym.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Off the top of my head, I hate to say this, I can't remember what all the letters actually stand for.
We can look that up and find out for sure. Yeah.
We'll put it in the comments. But,
absolutely.
But it is an acronym, the Patriot. But basically, the big thing about that now is initially they were designed for, it's air defense artillery. And initially it was designed for air defense against airplanes and helicopters, things we call air-breathing threats, fixed-wing aircraft, rotary wing. And through a series of upgrades, and as made popular in the first Gulf War, it became used for theater ballistic missile defense. With all the Scud missiles that Iraq was launching into,
right.
Israel and Kuwait and neighboring countries. So we were able to upgrade the Patriot missile system to intercept incoming ballistic missiles, as opposed to just shooting down aircraft.
That must have been extremely complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
People smarter than I figured.
Literal rocket scientists.
Yes,
literal
rocket scientists. They figured this out, and they eventually upgraded from going from basically a shotgun type effect, where our missile would go up into the air and then basically explode like a shotgun and send projectiles at the incoming missile.
Oh, so the debris. That's smart, like wider fields.
Right. So that's how they initially worked, and then they've upgraded to another type of missile, which is it's a kinetic hit-to-kill type situation where it actually goes faster and it just impacts the incoming missile and destroys it that way.
Oh, that's
fascinating.
That really would be a fascinating line of work. Well, before you were here, we got a little heated. We were talking about how abolish ICE, which was once a more fringe leftist opinion, has now kind of become more mainstream. And so we were just kind of talking. Cass, of course, wants to abolish ICE. I'm a skeptic of whatever he wants to abolish it with.
You mean perhaps replace it with, or just have nothing in
he
its
doesn't
place?
want to
I don't want
replace
anything in its place.
But he did say, to his credit, he didn't want to get rid of the CPB, Customs and Border Protection.
It should be radically changed, but it shouldn't not exist.
What would they protect the borders with other than these people?
Well, we're using the word protect, and I don't think protect is the right word. I think the right word is document. The problem is, the quote-unquote problem, these are not my words, but is undocumented immigrants. Mm-hmm. And if they are documented and here legally, if we change, I'm talking about a radical change of the laws so that they're not undocumented, they're documented. And that's my forward-thinking approach. And I'm not. It can't be something that happens instantaneously. It's a long-term plan, but I think it's the only moral and ethical choice. So how do you plan to document them if they're not coming in through approved ports of entry? Well, that they would be encouraged to come through approved ports of entry. The reason they're not coming through approved ports of entry is because they'll get turned away. If we don't turn them away, I think you're going to have a large number of people coming through those approved ports of entry. And the people that don't come through the approved ports of entry, who supposedly have malintent, would, if caught, we would know they are here under dubious circumstances.
But how would they be caught, though? If you take away the...
How are they caught now?
They're caught by Border Patrol. They're caught by ICE. ICE usually coordinates with FBI, CIA. That's how they take down smuggling operations, MS-13, etc.
How many people from MS-13 are coming here? How prevalent is that issue?
Mara Salvatrucha is a massive organization, is what I understood. Something like 100,000 members in the United States. And that's just what we know about. I don't have the figures in front of me. You might be able to speak better on this than I am. He's usually a little bit more polished.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering more about the, not our dangerous criminal element, not worried so much about MS-13. Of course, people like that are undesirable and we don't want them in our country. They're dangerous people. Whether we want to be associated with, our own, we have indigenous street gangs in America. We don't want to be around those folks. And I'm certain that if we wanted to export them to some other country, that country wouldn't want them either. But I'm more concerned with just the bigger picture of illegal immigration, border jumping the fence, sneaking in, being a criminal trespasser at the end of the day.
Well, what is the crime there? A lot of things, we have a lot of things that are crimes that shouldn't be crimes, and that's the core.
Are you referring to ethically? Because legally it is a crime. It's
yes,
in the US
legally
code.
It's a crime,
okay.
But is it ethically immoral? Is it morally immoral? Is it?
I get what
you know
you're
what I'm saying.
saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
is it immoral? Lots of crimes are crimes because they're just we've decided they're crimes, but there's a lot of things that are crimes that are morally not questionable at all. We recently decriminalized medical marijuana in the state of Oklahoma, and whether or not you agree with that stance, it was something that a lot of people thought should be legal morally. So,
all right. So it sounds to me like you're saying we should decriminalize, if you will, coming into the United States at will. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely, I am.
So we should basically not have borders, is what you're telling me.
He's an open borders guy.
Yeah, I'm an open borders guy.
And why is that?
I don't think I deserve the privilege of my birthplace just because I was born here. I could have been born anywhere in the world, and that's not my fault or my doing. And I'm very fortunate to be born in the U.S.
No fault of your own. And I love that you said that you are fortunate to have been born in this country.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot more people should realize that being born in this country is akin to winning the global lottery in many ways.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
In a lot of ways. But, and I also, I'm a big critic of birthright citizenship. I think the 14th Amendment should be repealed.
Whoa, okay, all right, go. Let's go for it. So what gives someone the right to claim a place as their birth?
Well, I think
nationality.
Right. I think citizenship is what we should focus on, not on where they were born. Because there are plenty of countries you can be born in, and they're never going to let you be a citizen. Go try to be a citizen of Saudi Arabia. It's not going to ever happen.
I don't think so. I don't think I'd do well there. But
might not
be great.
Yeah, all the Gulf countries, all the GCC nations, they have a lot of imported foreign workers. TCNs, as we call them in the military, third country nationals. And over in those places, basically, the single most important determining factor as to what type of job you're going to be able to have and how much you'll get paid to do it is what country issued your passport. And that determines who works indoors, who works outdoors, whether they get paid, this much or 10 times as much to do the same exact job. And no matter how long you're over there, no matter whether you get in that country legally or not, whether you have 1, 2, 0, 20 children there, you're not going to be a citizen because that's just how their laws are structured.
And those laws are wrong. I mean, you know,
but who are you to tell this sovereign nation what to do?
Well, who are we to tell anyone what to do? I'm not speaking from any place of authority. Right. I'm speaking from a conjectured moral opinion. And at the core of what you're saying, for lack of a better word, and take this with a grain of salt, offends me, and that's not the right word. If someone is born here and their parents were born here, and for instance, my family has been here since the 1500s, should I have to earn my citizenship?
I think everyone should. I think we should have.
Okay.
I think we should have.
Let's explore that.
I think we should have, legal residents versus citizens.
Oh, okay. Starship Troopers.
Yeah, let's go Starship Troopers.
Service guarantees citizenship. Yeah. If you haven't read the book, you should.
I have. The book is fantastic. I'm a big fan of Heinlein.
Yeah, much better than the movie.
Sidebar, and this is completely unrelated, but I have to say it. The fact that Heinlein wrote Starship Troopers and Stranger in a Strange Land is mind-boggling because they both are very much about citizenship, and they both espout completely different philosophies. But that's my side rant. I'm done. Continue. I apologize.
Right. So, all right. So again, I think we should have, legal residents. We should have citizens, and then we should have everybody else. And those are the two categories of people that have a right to be within the imaginary lines that we're going to call the national borders of some country. Maybe it's this country, maybe it's some other country. It really doesn't matter for the point of the argument. So we'll have those groups of people, and then there will be, different rights and privileges. If you're a citizen, you get to do X, Y, and Z that, the other people don't get to do. Voting, serve in public office, firearms, so on and so forth. As opposed to everyone else, the legal residents like, hey, we love it, we love you, you can be here, you can work, the laws apply to you, you can have, the civic duties and civil rights and all those wonderful things. But, here are the certain things that are reserved for citizens, and that's what they get to do. And for anyone else, well, you know what, you just don't have an inherent absolute right to be in the country because you're not a citizen. And for those people that would like to do that, and hey, migration of people, immigration is great, but we need it to be a filter and not a pump.
Why? The most interesting thing you've said is having two classifications for individuals in a country. The word you used was citizen, and what was the other word?
Legal resident.
Legal resident. Okay.
And we have that. We have that now, except we have the birthright citizenship aspect, under the 14th Amendment, which has been perverted in some ways. And then we have, people that are not from here that are allowed legally to remain in the country.
But you also advocated giving natural, for lack of a better word, citizens like me having to earn their actual citizenship.
Oh, I think basically the naturalization process we have in place for immigrants should apply to everyone.
Okay.
And I think that should be a prerequisite, and federal service of some sort in lieu of that.
That's a very interesting angle. I like it.
And when I say federal service, not just military, but kind of like in Starship Troopers, they find something you can do, and you do it for X period of time, and at the end of that, here's your citizenship.
Oh man, that's
interesting to me to hear.
You talk for a bit. I need to process that.
No, you're fine. Because I've always considered you to be pretty right. Sometimes even more further right than I am.
I'm going to tell you right now, he's much further right than you are.
Wouldn't that at the end, if these people aren't contributing to the military, wouldn't that just kind of contribute to a bloated bureaucracy, a bunch of unneeded government jobs? I mean, how do you keep from that if all these people want to earn their citizenship?
Well, it's not going to be mandatory service, of course.
Right.
I mean, I think as a stopgap measure, conscription would be an awesome thing for this country as far as providing a common collective cultural experience to form that mortar between the bricks of our society, to bring people together.
Interesting.
I think that would be an awesome thing as a stopgap measure. But if we're going to do it in a way that it is a prerequisite for citizenship, then it's voluntary, just like it is now. Not everybody's going to want to join up, and again, it's not only military service. It's not just people that want to go out and fight and potentially die.
Right.
Granted, the people that join up now, that's not their only reason. It's like, hey, I want to go fight. They want to serve their country and so have something greater than themselves. And hey, for a lot of people, they still get that jail or military option.
Right.
It's a damn paycheck. They do it. Hey, there's those guys in the combat zone. I'm just here for the college money or whatever.
Yeah. I guess kind of where I was coming from is another big thing that's been popping up in really far left circles now is not necessarily universal income, but government guaranteed jobs. And at what, like, I guess at the end of the day, what would the distinction be between people who are just necessarily looking for a government paycheck and people who are actually trying to become citizens? And if your, I guess, idea were to be put into effect, don't you think there'd be quite a few people that would just be looking for like a government paycheck?
Well, I think you could make that argument now. There could be people who said, you know what, I just want a paycheck, and I am between the ages of 17 and 35, and I'm able-bodied, so there's a recruiting station. I'll get my guaranteed money on the 1st and 15th if I do that. But again, we're not seeing people in droves trying to join up because of that reason.
Sorry, we had to make sure we were still recording, but we are good. Well, that's interesting. Well, Cass, let's just hear what you have. You look a little taken aback.
No, I've never heard Starship Troopers taken to the literal extreme, but we've had...
Well, here's the thing. It's not just the literal extreme. There are countries elsewhere in the world that do it that way.
What countries do that?
Well, there's definitely countries that have, mandatory service.
No, for sure. Mandatory service, while I'm opposed to it, is not a radical suggestion by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly within the realm of things that people talk about.
Well,
Israel,
the French Foreign Legion, for example. It's not mandatory, but these are people that aren't French citizens that join the French military, and as a reward or condition for doing so, French citizenship awaits them.
All right. In the United States, we have people who fight for our military, and they are not given citizenship. They've been deported as of late.
How? That's got to be a pretty low number, isn't it? I mean, I've heard of those too, but I've heard a lot of people also, they had a big, I think you posted a big naturalization ceremony on the deck of a carrier.
Right, at the USS Midway in San Diego, the carrier that's been converted into a museum.
And while that's great, isn't one person being deported who served in our military too many?
Obviously that's too many.
And I don't have the statistics in front of me, but
that could be
conceptually that's horrifying.
That could be indicative, though, of someone slipping through the cracks of like a boring practice as opposed to
not only that,
symptom.
but simply as it is now, simply serving in the military is not a guarantee of citizenship. There's still hoops to jump through, a process to go through.
I thought you had to be a citizen to join the military. Do you not?
No, you do not. If you are a legal resident, you have to at least be in the country legally first. You can join up as a non-citizen. They have different branches have certain specific programs to encourage or to help in recruiting different people from different countries. A lot of it's for foreign service, intelligence needs, language skills, that sort of thing. But even people that don't fit into those programs, the opportunity is there. And once they're in, they serve just like anybody else. And the government is willing to help and assist and prod them along in the citizenship process, but it's still something they have to make the choice to avail themselves of.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay. Well, I think before we were talking about citizenship and just about how open borders, I think we could kind of get into a larger argument just about sovereignty in general. And I want to hear your thoughts about that, Cass, because we've never actually discussed it. Just about how a nation can dictate what goes on in their borders and who comes in and who comes out. I mean, obviously you disagree with the border part, but if you disagree with the nation maintaining its borders, I mean, I think without borders, it's hard to have a country. It's hard to tell where a country's influence begins and where it ends. What are your opinions just on sovereignty in general?
Well, I mean, there are two things I value more than any political ideology, and you both have attacked both of them. So no, you're good.
It was unintentional.
No, you're fine.
I'll get mean and vindictive later.
I value universal democracy, and I value globalism. So
of course you do.
Of course I do. You've met me, and you're getting a good picture.
Well, I like globalism and universal democracy, assuming we had lots of stars in our flag and have Planet America.
I like that idea.
I mean,
Germany, the 56th state, together we can make it happen.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I think that the most important thing we and again, that this is getting into more moralistic arguments than practical arguments. I understand that we can't just dissolve all the borders tomorrow. That would be an unmitigated disaster. That's not what I'm saying. But the idea that a citizen is bound solely by the place that they live is impractical. I mean, look at what the European Union's been able to do by quote-unquote opening their borders for people who are members of the EU. And
well, again, they still have to be members of the EU. They're not trying to have open borders for the earth.
But it's a step in the right direction, and
that's very different. Just contextually.
But let's start with Mexico. Okay. And then we'll move on to Central
Mexico?
America. I'm not saying annex Mexico. I'm saying open the borders.
We should have done at the end of the Mexican-American War.
I think we need a supercontinent.
When we annexed half of their territory and we could have had 100% of their territory, we made a mistake.
I'm talking to my father. This is
what's happening. Don't you think Mexico would be better off?
Well, not by annexing, but we can work mutually together. You can't tell another country you have to follow me. There are several things that have to happen.
You can when you conquer them.
Well, we don't want to conquer Mexico.
Much like at the end of the Civil War when the Confederate States of America were conquered and assimilated back into the United States of America. With these arguments of, well, we don't want to annex them, it's a third world country. Well, how do you think the northern states felt when it was time to bring Mississippi back into the fold? Same thing, the whole Reconstruction era.
I mean, not to denigrate aspects of Mexican culture, because they have amazing culture. I mean, they're people. I have tons of Mexican friends. But the reason a lot of people are coming from Mexico to America is because obviously we're doing certain things better.
Well, for one, most of them aren't coming from Mexico. Most
not now, but
undocumented immigration comes from Central America.
From the 70s to 90s, a lot of people come from Mexico.
Is that why the Border Patrol has only two categories of people? Mexicans and other than Mexicans?
Well, that's actually true, because between the 70s and 90s, and even up to the early aughts, it was mostly Mexicans.
Yes, but Mexican immigration has been depleting. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
Right. Immigration levels from other countries is on the rise.
We're talking about annexing Mexico.
And I've said this before. I don't care where they come from. They can be from what I call the four N's. They can be from Nicaragua, Norway, Nigeria, or Nepal. It doesn't matter to me. If they jump the fence or overstay their visa, they're here illegally and they need to go. I'm an equal opportunity deport.
Speaking of equal opportunity,
very ethical of you. I appreciate it.
I don't want to discriminate.
Let's talk merit-based immigration, something that you just knee-jerk reacted to, and something that I'd love to hear your thoughts on merit-based immigration.
Well, have at it.
Well, I still want to talk about the whole idea of annexing Mexico. Can I stay with that?
I'd like to hear more about the universal democracy and the lack of borders.
Lots to cover. Let's just go for it.
Why do we have to conquer Mexico? Why is that the immediate thing you think of when you think of?
I mean, Hitler annexed Austria without firing a single shot. I mean, they're not going to put up a fight. I don't.
Yes, let's be like Germany in the 1930s.
I was using
great idea, Chandler.
Annexation example.
No.
Well, not just. We don't have to go about conquering.
Why can't it be a mutual agreement?
We've had states enter the United States through they voted for it. It's something they desired.
Yeah, Texas voted for it.
Texas voted for it. California voted for it.
You think if you put that up in Mexico to a vote, they wouldn't vote to join America?
No, I don't think they would.
I think that I don't know. I feel like it could go either way on that.
Why do we? I'm not. We can slowly dissolve the cultural and physical border differences by mutually working together and coming to a legal means of
the culture. I think one of the things that's the cultural differences is a great thing.
Well, the cultural there's really not that big of a cultural difference between the United States and Mexico. It's just different. It's not.
But it's a good difference.
Contextually different. Like we have the same. I think Mexican and broadly South American and Central Mexican culture is very new world in that we have a very optimistic worldview as opposed to the old world. So. But that's another conversation.
It's like comparing Catholicism, which is largely Latin America, to Protestantism, which is a good portion of America. But they're so similar, but they have contextual differences.
I think that's fair. I don't. Well, of course, that's a large part of it. But I just think that it's interesting that you switch straight to annex or conquer.
He said conquer, I said annex.
Well, fair.
I think he didn't say conquer as in let's do it. I think he said conquer. I don't even know. But
hey, hashtag remember the Zimmerman telegram.
Yeah, right. That could have happened, bro. If that had happened, then would you be down with it?
So you asked about my thoughts on what was the last question you had for me before I went back to the annexation issue?
The stuff you're talking about universal democracy and globalism and lack of borders and so on and so forth.
Well, sure. Look, globalism is good for one reason and one reason only. It's not because our TVs are cheaper. That's great. It does a lot of bad things. It puts workers in Ohio out of business because we've shipped our companies to other countries.
But it puts people in other places in work.
True, but more important
outsourcing and interconnectivity.
True, but more important than that, free trade and traditional globalization in that sense keeps countries from going to war. I mean, Europe hasn't been at war with itself since the EU was instituted.
Well, I think kind of a combination between some of the things, like, of course, you're aware, about Dinesh D'Souza and Thomas Friedman, the foreign affairs writer for New York Times.
I'm not familiar with him, but continue.
Okay.
I'll catch up.
You should look him up. He wrote a book called what's it called? The Lexus and the Olive Tree. It's pretty much the definitive book on globalization, and it's about connectedness versus disconnectedness within the world community. And connectedness, it's great. It encourages security. Disconnectedness leads to danger. And there's another thing. Liberal democracies are the countries that generally don't go to war with one another. And they've done some studies and seen that once the median income of a nation hits at least 5,000 per capita, then that's when they see war as not something that they want to pursue, because they basically made it to a good life.
Yeah.
They're comfortable. They don't need to have a war.
I've got power coming to my bolts. Yeah.
And it also goes into this notion that no two countries that both have McDonald's in them have gone to war with each other since they both got their McDonald's.
The McDonald's
is that true? That is
it's not true.
There's
two countries that went to war that both had McDonald's in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
But still, only one example?
It's fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Well, I don't know if it's one, but it lasted for a long time.
No.
So
thank you, Ray Kroc.
Well, and then we voted for Trump because now we hate globalism for some reason.
But he loves McDonald's, so...
He does, that's true.
Well, I think it's less hating globalism as it is, hearting nationalism, loving the America first.
Yeah, well, I would like to hear you talk more about how nationalism, or at least American national interest, could play into globalism in general, but we never really talked America first, and your reaction to that.
Well, it's a phrase that means nothing.
Obviously,
Trump said it because it sounds fun.
No, it means prioritizing national interest over everything else.
No, right, but it has insidious undertones.
Well, tell me more.
Yeah, let's hear.
When you because it doesn't have to be America first. We're so globally connected. Well, but we're so globally connected that by instituting ideas that come from this train of thought, we're not only undercutting our allies, but we're undercutting things that do benefit us.
Okay.
People who share that mindset want to institute policies that on paper sound like they might help America be great again, but they don't do that in theory. They don't do that in practice. They only do it in theory.
Okay, well, that's interesting. By undertones, I'm assuming you meant xenophobia,
nationalism.
And other things.
Yeah. Nationalism, jingoism, xenophobia, fear of the other. All really dangerous red flags.
Shouldn't all of a government's actions, though, be first to benefit its citizens? I mean, at the end of the day, are you going to screw over
citizens?
The biggest benefit
to its citizens.
To the citizens of individual countries, or the citizens of everywhere? Because you
Both.
have to admit that different countries, different cultures, different societies are at different levels. This cultural relativism stuff, it's really a bunch of hooey. Not to say that we need to be like Star Trek and have a prime directive and understand that country over there hasn't discovered warp drive per se, so we need to not meddle with them and alter the course of their development.
If you're promising me a Star Trek future, I'll do whatever you say politically.
Right. But the Star Trek future did not come until we had a united planet, until it was like Coruscant in Star Wars. The whole planet was one city, which I think negates the need for time zones, because time is a constant.
Yeah, but what did they do once they got there? They eliminated borders. They took care of their people, and they looked at things that progressed their society. So in order to get there, we have to become hyper-nationalist and do the opposite of that?
No, I think the best course of action for right now is for the key players who are developing the technology to get there to continue to develop that technology and not spend resources allocating it otherwhere.
So we're allocating it everywhere for ourselves. Let's scale it down to public education. Public education doesn't necessarily help me. My parents probably could have afforded a private education that was really great. However, I do better because you have the same baseline education as I do. Why would we not? Let's take that to the global scale.
We would want to have that same baseline education for everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But what happens when not everyone everywhere wants to do that? It's one of these things. I like to say communism is great, and it only works if everyone wants to play along. Everyone has to play along. If you have standouts and holdouts and coalitions of countries that don't want to do it, you're going to have issues.
He's talking about inequality between cultures. He's absolutely right about that.
Let's lead by example then.
Yeah, I mean, we're not
trying that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not necessarily talking like, Samuel Huntington Clash of Civilizations, civilizational blocks having friction with one another, but there are certain things in the works we can look around with, with the things the BRICS are doing that are leading in that direction and the further shifting eastward of the global axis of power.
No, but wasn't that what we were doing throughout the entire Cold War, and didn't it eventually work? We proved by example and by overthrowing communist revolutions with the CIA that our system worked best, that we could provide the best outcomes for individuals with our system, and we did it.
I mean, not really, though. We look at Russia now, it didn't really work that well.
Not Russia, but if we look at the NATO countries, it did.
Some,
right?
Yeah.
Well, the NATO countries, they were, again, we're talking liberal democracies, we're talking capitalist systems. We weren't trying to contain them the way we were trying to contain the Soviet Union, and we weren't trying to have some sort of contest where we wanted to outspin them into oblivion eventually.
But but in the end, their system did fall. So if our system,
right, their system could not, support its own weight. It crumbled in upon itself because they couldn't keep up with us.
I'm not sure what we're talking about anymore.
We
went to Star Trek, and then we started talking about the Cold War.
I think we were both trying to make the case that nationalism fueling certain countries can lead to better technological and societal advancement than sharing everything.
Define nationalism for me, because I
country putting its own national interest first.
The idea that we have countries and we should have them, and that we individual people belong to a country, a nation, a state, and they want to put the interest of that nation, their nation, first. They want to do what's in that country's best interest.
Literally America first, yeah.
America first. Or the Vietnam War. Viewing that as an extension of Soviet, expansion and Soviet sphere of influence and the domino theory of communism, as opposed to the nationalistic struggle that it was.
That's interesting. But yeah, no, that's where we were coming from, basically. Is we were arguing that nationalism is the best way to advance a
and don't get me wrong, I would love for us to not have countries. I think, it's a bunch of separatist, wacko nonsense to have separate individual countries. I think it's kind of primitive and backwards, and it's holding humanity back from progressing to where we need to be. But again, we can't get there unless everybody's on the same page.
Then why institute policies that strengthen that mindset? Because that's what's happening right now. We're talking about how the border is this sacred line that we have to protect, and that for some reason this area of the planet that we all are on is magic. But
we're not. No one on the right, no one in Syria is anti-immigration in general. But they are anti-illegal immigration. They're anti-people coming into this country that cannot be accounted for undocumented.
So let's document and account for them.
Okay.
Problem solved.
That's fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, whoever's documenting them has to have teeth. Go ahead.
Well, and you say let's document them and account for them, but you want to do that on an unlimited basis?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think that would lead to? What would that do to America?
We were talking before this, and I said that would cheapen the labor value of everyone in America if millions of people came in that were willing to work for minimum wage. I mean,
here's the thing. A lot of people make that argument, they're doing jobs Americans don't want to do, or they're, getting paid less and getting paid under the table, but there are people out there that are in the country illegally that are making way more than that. We're talking $25, $30, $50 an hour to do different things. So I want to throw that income, that payment argument out the window.
I'm talking about legal citizens. I'm saying if you legalize just millions of people that are coming in all of a sudden, it would cheapen the amount of labor for everyone else because there's a way bigger labor pool for
right. We're looking at a supply and demand issue of we have all these workers. Do we have jobs for them?
Right.
And not only that, but I think about the tail end of the Nixon years when they said when Nixon went to China and was talking to Chairman Mao and Henry Kissinger was with him, and they were getting into a discussion of how poorly women were treated in China, women's rights issues. And so, he told him, said, Chairman Mao, American women would never stand for this. The Chinese women would love it in America. And he said, okay, well, how many Chinese women shall we send you? Would you like 10,000, 10 million, 100 million? How many would you like? Think about that. They had the population to literally do that if they wanted to and still have plenty of people. If we were to take, say, 500 million people from China and 500 million people from India and plop them into the United States tomorrow, what's going to happen? That's why immigration needs to be a filter and not a pump.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, demographics of that high of quality would surely, I mean, whether it be economics, whether it be culture, I mean, something.
But that's not going to happen. Well, why do you think that's going to happen?
I mean, if you announce what you're talking about right now about like abolish ICE, document everyone.
Right.
That is not what I'm talking about. I specifically said you can't just abolish our borders. This has to be a slow, gradual process.
I know, but I'm saying if everyone knew that you are not going to get rejected into coming America, whole states would just leave. Like Central America, whole countries of the people would leave.
What would be there to prevent everyone on Earth that has the financial wherewithal to get a ticket on a boat, a plane, who knows what, a hovercraft, I don't know, a blimp, and to come to America and just be here?
I don't necessarily think that would be a bad thing if you have the data to support that it wouldn't disrupt a bunch of stuff.
I reject the premise on its whole. I don't think people want to come here and live here. I think people want to live in where they're from. They come here for other reasons. They come here because we have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of capital, and they can distribute it.
And they want our stuff.
It's not our stuff.
It is, because it's our country and we're citizens, and therefore we're entitled to that stuff, and that's just how.
Why are we entitled? And that's the part we disagree on. And that,
right.
I don't believe I'm entitled to anything here more than someone born in Nicaragua. Why? Because I was born here? Because I was raised here?
Well, that and like you participate in the local government and you have like a whole network of people. I mean, your roots are integrated all throughout this country. I mean, if you just left,
but they're not. They're in Oklahoma. Why am I allowed to go to North Dakota and take their jobs? Why am I allowed to go to New York and take their jobs?
Well, I mean,
why is someone in France allowed to go to Britain?
Because the states agreed that a long time ago.
Because, you're right.
So let's make that agreement with other countries.
Okay, well, you know what? Find a country that's willing to do that and work with us on that. Again, it doesn't have to be a country that we border. It can be, wherever. As long as we have that type of reciprocity agreement in place, fine.
Okay, great. Then there we go.
So, but... Easier said than done.
It took the EU decades.
But they got there, didn't they?
They did. No, they did.
Yeah, and that is the example that we should be following.
I don't know. I feel like it is very, very different. I mean, we're looking at a bunch of little.
They all speak different languages.
I know.
We speak Spanish and English.
We speak English and English. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing.
Let's get there. Are you opposed to a national language?
I don't know why we're talking about this, but obviously
I brought a conservative friend
Have you ever gone anywhere on an airplane?
Yes.
Guess what all pilots on Earth speak? English. Guess what every air traffic controller on Earth speaks? English. It's called being on the same page so the planes don't fall out of the sky and the trains get where they're going.
I'm for a global language, and that should be English because it's already the international trade language.
It is. Why are people in other countries, mandating that their kids learn to speak English in addition to whatever their local national language is, if it is some language other than English?
Because we built a globalist culture.
Well, I mean, a global economy at the very least.
Which is culture. The economy is culture. In a capitalist society, economy and culture are intrinsically tied together.
Well, culture implies that we're all sharing things. We're really not.
We all have the same culture.
They're just all sharing our. I mean,
that was a broad statement. Ignore that. But go ahead.
Do you go to the movie theater and watch a movie from China or Norway?
Yeah, I went and saw a Bollywood movie last week.
Okay, you went and saw India. The only other.
What did you see?
I don't remember.
This guy will know your Bollywood.
Was it Race 3? Or have you seen Sanji yet?
It wasn't Sanji. I honestly don't remember the title, but it was one that was apparently really controversial. I don't remember anything about it.
Was it the one where all the women set themselves on fire?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
And I do want to see that.
It's really good.
But outside of Bollywood, I mean, for the most part, they all share our culture. Everyone, they go to see our movie. It's not reciprocal. It's not like this shared culture. They're all sharing in our product, aside from Bollywood.
So they probably integrate a little better than you're thinking.
Part of that is they realize, you know what, we've got this thing covered. They don't need to do a duplication of effort.
Right.
Let's just watch that. Kind of like that peace dividend that we didn't get, but the European Union did because they live under our defense bubble.
Right. Now that's another thing about how our runaway military budget, what people a lot of times don't understand is we are literally protecting everyone from everyone. So that's a big part of it. Maybe
I don't disagree with
that's
that.
why I like the whole Trump. Maybe NATO should kind of pay for their own thing. Getting wildly off topic, but
wildly, but sure.
You would actually go with that? I mean, I don't know. I see you as being at least.
There's a reason we spend as much on our military as we do. I think the issue is we have enough money to do anything we want to do. That's my view. The money is not distributed properly. is the issue, and we don't.
I'd like to think we had enough money to maybe do something about that national debt, but I think we have a perpetual war economy since the end of World War II.
China's starting to own our dollar too, with their buying up of the bonds. Well, that's definitely subject to a more nuanced debate.
And that's out of my wheelhouse.
Oh,
Yeah.
That gets in the whole decoupling the petrodollars and the very, very, very bad things that are on the horizon because of what the BRICS are doing that is not reported in the mainstream media, because if people understood it, we'd have rioting in the streets.
Okay, we might have to research
That's a part 2.
Yeah, and start rioting. Start rioting. Well, I think that I'm actually gonna have to go pick up my daughter here pretty soon, guys. You got a signing off thought for us, Adrian?
You know what? Nothing specific. I'm just really happy that we did this.
We got to glad to have you here. Absolutely, you'll have to come back.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm going to read.
I like
read.
pairing with the. I like that pairing with the on Facebook. Facebook Live.
We'll share it to the various places and get some more exposure, and it'll be fantastic. So you're doing a podcast. I'm sure it has a name. Tell the folks.
Yeah, Political Bedlam is our podcast. We just had our first real breakthrough interview. We had former Governor Keating on, so check us out on iTunes, Spotify. We're on YouTube, of course.
We're on everything.
We're on everything.
We're on everything.
Producer says we're on everything. Yeah, give us a listen, and we're going to have to do this again because very well informed and very fun discussion. So
he came in a.
I know he's making us look awful.
Yeah,
he just came from
well,
court.
I had to go to court today, and I just kept it on. It's a burden to take.
Next time we're going to dress up,
and I'll dress down.
Dress down, perfect.
I'll rock the shorts and some slippers. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm rocking the flip flops and socks, classic dad fashion. So.
Yeah, clown shoes. I like to call
clown
shoes, flip flops and socks is clown shoes.
Amen.
But I still love this guy.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming on. We're good.
Want to do a close?
Yeah, no, I'll put a final bell on it another 2 minutes later. But yeah.
Hi, everybody. I don't know any of you, but thanks for watching.
Thank you so much, guys. All right. Big thanks to Adrian Otap for coming out. Check out the Otap Show on Facebook. I thought that was great.
No, I thought that was a really good episode. We'll have to do it again. He frustrates me to my core. And I got a little flustered. But next time he's here, I'm going for it.
You're going for it?
Yeah, no, I'm going to bone up, and I'm going to be ready for him.
And we're talking a little bit off the mic. We're going to have to bring in somebody who's from the left to kind of give me...
Yeah, it's my turn to overwhelm you.
So next week, Cass, we're going to come at you live with Karl Marx. Bring Karl Marx on
We've reanimated him.
Reanimated Karl Marx. His voice is going to sound a little disembodied. That's fine.
It always has. It's always been kind of a spectre-y kind of voice.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, the seance does that. Not great for audio quality.
A spectre will loom over Political Bedlam.
Yes. Karl Marx will be forever cursing me and blessing Cass. We, in the next week or so, we are talking to Senator Langford's office. We're going to have him on the show. He, of course, Congress is out of session, so it'll be easy to do an interview with him back in the city. I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm sure you are looking forward to saying a bunch of things to Senator Langford.
I'm going to hold my tongue. I'll be nice.
Yeah, I mean, you can just phrase your questions very pointed.
No, I'm actually very much looking forward to that. Hopefully it goes through and we don't have any hang-ups, but it's looking good at this point.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll have him on soon. We've also got a bunch of other local candidates. I'm talking to some Democrats here in town, and I know you're talking to some people on the Republican side, and we're going to have a lot more local coming at you. So get ready for that. We've got more pop culture coming up. We've got my sultry voice, Chandler's sultry voice, Reese's sultry voice, and you're just going to have a bunch of sultry voices coming at you through your iPod.
Exactly. We're trying to post, maybe with some more frequency. We got some more candidates that want to come on before their runoffs, so we're going to try and get to some. We got some people running for superintendent. We got some, trying about maybe bringing Jeff on, because he, of course, made it past his primary, so...
Love to have him back on.
Yeah, going to have him on. We're going to talk a little bit about a campaign update and more about Star Wars, because we did promise him a Star Wars episode so he can explain his wrong opinions on why The Last Jedi was good.
I think I've explained why it's the perfect film, the perfect Star Wars film.
I just cringed so hard.
I'm getting heat from Jeremy over here. He's giving me dirty looks.
Well, guys, we appreciate you listening. And of
Always.
course, find the OTAP Show on Facebook and catch us sometime earlier next week. See you guys.
Thank you.